Remember, the market cap of silver is the size of a pinhead, and you throw a bunch of money at it, and it doesn't just go up, it explodes higher. This is what they've been trying to hold back. And I think that the big money across the globe understands this. I think they understand that this is a rush to a quiet rush to accumulate the resources. I think it means a lot for the LBMA. Um, it because of this, and because the move to classify silver as a resource of national interest, that's China. Um, and then you add the U.S. putting it on the critical mineral list, which means they too can curtail exports. The president can do it without congressional order. And then you look at the essential role of silver in solar panels, electric vehicles, semiconductors, defense, you name it. I think what it really does is it shows that both countries are viewing silver as a strategic asset. It's not a commodity anymore. And, I think you're looking at a potential supply crisis and rising strategic value. What starts out as a trickle turns into much more than that. And, the people watching this show and listening to others in the industry who talk about this are way ahead of the curve and think, well, geez, everyone knows this. But walk outside your bubble and talk to anyone who's well read, reading the wrong stuff, mind you, they won't have any idea about any of this. And so we're a ways away from that moment where it turns into a stampede. But it will curtail, I believe, it will curtail supply. And in a market like silver that is so massively rehypothecated at the upper levels, meaning the same contract is sold over and over and over and over again, creating a real problem. Remember, the market cap of silver is the size of a pinhead, and you throw a bunch of money at it, and it doesn't just go up, it explodes higher. This is what they've been trying to hold back. And I think that the big money across the globe understands this. I think they understand that this is a rush to a quiet rush to accumulate the resources. And I think they know that that if they don't do this, they being all of the governments, and really work hard at protecting their own supply chains and their own strategic stockpiles, silver is a necessary element. It's necessary in moving energy. It's necessary in moving civilizations. As dramatic as that sounds, there is no element on the planet that conducts heat and electricity better than silver. People say copper. Copper's too slow. Copper's going up too. It's reclassified. But silver is a needed element. It is critical. And I think it will start to affect the supply chain. I think people take for granted for far too long how easy it is to get silver. I talk to people all around the world who have a next to impossible time of getting it all around the world. I get emails every day saying it's impossible to find silver, impossible to find silver. So it's been something we've taken for granted here in the U.S. I could see that rapidly changing if all of the governments start to say, hey, we better get into a protectionism type of mode and not sell this to the United States and to North America. Let's take care of our own first. And you could argue that's what the U.S. is doing right now. And over time, you can't suppress it. I think over time, the direction the market is moving will win. Throughout that greater trend, there are moments of suppression. These are some very big entities that have a lot of firepower. But no, I think long-term, the trend is moving in a direction that you won't be able to suppress it. And I think we're setting up for a battle between the industrials, which would be the Teslas and the Sonys and the Samsungs,
Mm-hmm.
the hedge funds, the investors, but now you can add into it the government. And bald guy Money was talking about, and he gave me a shout out on his show today. So thank you, Roger. I appreciate that. Talking about how I've talked about the military industrial complex's role for so long, and now it's being validated. He says, look, the U.S. government just for military alone will need between 50 and 100 million ounces. And I think that's on the low end. So you put into it the government putting a floor into it, the government now going after it. governments going after it, restricting supply, restricting exports. And at some point, you add the government into the mix, you have a three-headed monster all battling for the same ounce of silver: the industrials, the hedge funds investors, and now the governments. And I think it will make it nearly impossible to hold the price down over a long period of time. If you don't, you're going to wipe out. And I say that from a skiing metaphor. I've always fancied myself as a pretty good skier. And if you look at the tips of your skis, you're dead in the water. You got to be looking 10 feet out. You got to see if you're skiing moguls, you better look 10 to 15 feet ahead of you. And the same thing is true here. If you are not rolling with the changes, you get rolled by the changes. And I would rather be 6 months or 5 years early than 60 seconds or 5 minutes late. I really would. It's a curse and it is a blessing. But I think, and maybe I'm just silly enough to have the courage to say it, being way early and being accused of that. But a lot of the things that I said on your show, I look back and say, yeah, it was risky to say it, but somehow a lot of it has come true. And I'm not trying to pride myself as a soothsayer or a prophet or a mystic. I just maybe am open-minded enough to try and connect the dots and tell people that when most people wouldn't have the courage or even the ability to look at it, connect them, and say it publicly. I do. But I often say, I don't know if I'm right. This is what I see. I connect the dots. This is where the logical Occam's razor, my logical outcome, comes to. And I do think, but the Genius Act in many ways has created a new monetary system, and the acts of the government in securing just about any basic commodity metal as strategic is very enlightening. It's illuminating. We are moving away from the traditional Keynesian debt-based system into one of who's got the goods. I don't want the paper promises. I want the real thing. And I think this administration understands that. I do. I'd like to say no. I mean, history has shown that does happen from time to time. But instead, how about we create the largest stockpile of silver around and have it held by BlackRock and JP Morgan? We'll call it SLV. And anyone who owns it in a managed account, they can never take possession of it. I mean, it bothered people that Saudi Arabia bought, I don't know, $200 million worth of silver through SLV, but they bought enough to where they can stand for delivery, and they probably will, and until the trust starts to disallow deliveries from the authorized participants who have what's called a basket. It's millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars worth. But my point is simply this. I think it would be much easier for them to come in on a Friday night and nationalize SLV and all the other ETFs that BlackRock and JP Morgan are involved with. You have the company that paid the largest fine the Justice Department ever handed out for manipulating a market, JP Morgan, and it was a silver market at that, still allowed with their buddies BlackRock to control the world's largest silver stockpile. Much easier to come in on a Friday night, take that, put that money in people's money markets and say, what? We didn't break laws or infringe civil liberties. All we did is close the account. The prospectus gives us every right to do that. Go ahead and buy Silver Eagles. Go buy whatever you want. We're not making it illegal. I think that would be their first choice, because when you nationalize assets from your own people, I think you cross a line that is almost impossible to come back from, at least in terms of trust. It's one thing to do it to foreign nations like Russia, like Iran, which is bad enough, which has already created I think, a huge loss of trust and confidence in the system. You do it to your own people, it's over. You will never be trusted by the worldwide community ever again, especially when countries like China and Russia and all of these other countries, India, are allowing, promoting, endorsing metal ownership. It makes sense to ask the question, and you should always be prepared. You prepare the best you can, but at the same time, you hope for the best. And I don't think I would worry about that at this point. I think they would have the largest stockpile in the world with a pink bow wrapped around it, held in JP Morgan vaults and BlackRock vaults, where they could do this and still have their cake and eat it too. Geologically, it should. The question is, where do they revalue gold to? That's the biggest question. And because of the geologic anomaly, if you will, the price and geologic anomaly, where gold is maybe 30 times less rare or more than platinum in nature, and and platinum's main source of production is
Russia and
South
South Africa,
Africa,
yeah.
and I think Zimbabwe. Those three countries. Um, yeah, I mean it should, and it there's every reason to. And when you talk about how hard it is to get supply, like in this industry, the U.S. Mint hasn't made any silver eagles in a very long time. I mean, platinum eagles in a very long time, 3-4 years, and they didn't make any this year. And I don't think next year they have it on the docket to make 2026. Um, the sovereign mints are woefully inadequate in terms of their production. Platinum should be part of people's portfolios, but I don't know. See, gold and silver are viewed strategically and monetarily. I don't know how the U.S. government and others view platinum. I would argue there'll be a rush to get all elements that will ultimately, whether admitted to or not, be viewed as strategic. So whether or not it bypasses gold the way that it did for so long is debatable because of the potential of gold being revalued, but it should do very well nonetheless from a percentage increase, percentage wise. And there are a couple mining companies that they are actively investing in. Yeah, they will, and they should. And it's at some point we have to be in charge of our own destiny, and I think that it would be silly to not fast track and aid in mining endeavors of all critical elements. That's what this is becoming. This is becoming a rush to secure the ability to be productive and to be self-sufficient. So yeah, I think we will see that, because you look at silver, the majority of all the silver coming into this country is coming from Peru and Mexico and Canada. We are subservient to these other countries, and that's not a good thing for something that is considered critical.